Hey guys, Brianna here, and I'm sad because the Bundesliga is on winter break, Winterpause, and so there is no football for me to watch right now until the end of January. But speaking of disappointing and sad, I just mean that we're on a break. I'm very proud of my team. These are the disappointing books of 2018 for me, but what is excellent is that it is a very, very short list. So again, I don't just do books that I thought were okay or books that I disliked. I only do books that I had really excitement for and they just did not deliver. And I only have 4 books, well, technically 6 books, but 2 are part of a graphic novel series. So this is probably, I think, the smallest list I've done since I started doing these videos, which has been, I think, 2 or 3 times. So let's get started. The first one, now I always donate these books right away, so I don't have them. Actually, I have the graphic novel, but I don't have this one. So, A Maggot by John Fowles. Now throughout the year, I've talked about The Collector by John Fowles, which is one of the most terrifying books ever to me, about a guy who kidnaps a girl and just holds her hostage and watches her like a butterfly. He's a collector. And that was so terrifying, and I was really excited to read his other books. And last year I read one, The Magus, with my friend Zena, and that was super disappointing. And this year we read A Maggot, and that was also super disappointing. So I don't know if I'll even try to read. There's 2 other books of his that I haven't read, The French Lieutenant's Woman, which I've heard good things about, and maybe one other thing. But what I do know, at least, is that if I'm not feeling it, some books, they really come together in the end. If I'm not feeling his books, the first quarter of the book, to immediately drop it in the future. It was just unnecessarily long, and there was no point to it. There was no explanation, there was no clarification about literally anything, and it's a 600-something book. Like, waste of time. So that was, again, so disappointing. And the premises of his books are always so good. I can't believe he's the same guy who wrote The Collector. Like, I can't. The next book I talked about in my November wrap-up, and that's Asylum by Patrick McGrath, about a woman who, I don't remember what year it's set in, but she's the wife of the warden of the mental institution, or a doctor at a mental institution, and they live in a house near, on the, like, grounds, and she ends up cheating on him with a patient. And first of all, I absolutely can't stand cheaters in real life, but as well in fiction. I just think people who cheat are probably one of the worst people in the entire world. Like, of course there's like, for some there's like extenuating circumstances if you need to get out of a horrible situation or if you didn't want to be married in the first place. But if that's not the case, then I just think they're awful people. So when I'm reading books or watching TV or anything like that, like, I automatically just can't stand it. So there has to be more to it. There has to be more of a story. And what was fascinating is that the story is told from like information that she gave and that she tells one of her friends, because her husband was a doctor, and so she made friends with the doctors, and one of her doctor friends she's telling the story to and explaining everything. And there was just no reason why they should be into each other. I mean, I'm sure you could say lust, you could say passion, but it just was like, what? And then it was just so dull, right? Like, isn't the premise sound kind of interesting? But it was so dull. Like, it's like really bright. So, yeah, so it was just, yeah. It just didn't need, it sounds so mean to say, but like, it didn't need to exist. Like, yeah, didn't do anything. Then there's I'm Traveling Alone by Samuel Bjork. I have no idea how to pronounce that. It's a translated work, and I talk about this in the December wrap-up that I posted a day or 2 ago. And in that wrap-up, I give full details for why I could not stand that book. Everything from just the mystery was such an interesting premise. There's a girl found hanging from a tree, and on the sign, there's a sign on her that says, I'm traveling alone. And it's book 1 in the detective series with a partner, a male and female partner, and the book starts with, after a rough case where she couldn't save this girl, she had took a big leave of absence, but because of these horrific crimes, they are bringing the force back together. She was really whiny, She was planning on ending her life, but she doesn't really give a reason. She could have just reached the end of her rope, but like she gives the reasons for not having her parents and her sister anymore. And her sister died years ago though, and so did her parents. So she just was whining the whole, like she just, it's because she's portrayed as this amazing super detective who's unstoppable, amazing, so strong and everything, and like she doesn't actually show any of those characteristics through the thing. And I understand that could change because she's been through a lot, but she makes one amazing leap and bound with connections to help solve the mystery, but that's really the only one, and it really comes out of nowhere. Like it's not good, well written at all. Even if a detective makes leaps and makes big leaps, it should be something that like you could reasonably think like, oh, I would have thought, or I could have thought that too, or that is a reasonable assumption to make. And that just wasn't the case. There's an anagram on one of the girls, there's a name, and she's like, oh, that's not the girl's name, so it must be an anagram. And an anagram means this person didn't do it. Like literally that's what it spells out. It doesn't even just spell out a different name, it spells out this person didn't do it. Like really? Like, and by this person I mean like the name of the person. Yeah. So I thought that there was a lot of elements and a lot of things that they put in the story that were made it an interesting story, but you also, yeah, those were interesting. So I would say that the story wasn't awful. I did give this 2 stars though, but the characters were all awful. Or the main characters were all awful. There was a couple side people that work in the task force that were really nice, but didn't really get to shine, and you didn't really get to know that much about. But the main characters, the main guy, never was like doing his job. Like they really said that they had no budget. They were bringing the task force together, working at 24/7, but he was so focused about his personal problems, one of which related to the main story, which seemed a way bit of a stretch for me. Like just, it was convenient. But they also were like not answering their phone when their coworkers would call because they'd be too busy being emo and being stressed about their personal relationships. I'm like, I don't know, unprofessional. But yeah, so, and then we have Dear Mr. M by Herman Koch, and he wrote The Dinner, he wrote Swimming Pool, Summer House with Swimming Pool, which I really liked. And he's an author that I've talked about that I don't know if he says things or writes characters certain ways because he secretly feels that way or what, but either way, and again, I've always said I pull that out of my butt because there's no reason for me to think that the author feels that way about certain issues, but his books are always so quick and easy to read. Not the quick because you can't put them down, but I was just really bummed with the result of this one, and the characters weren't as... the characters were still interesting and unique and a little bit messed up in their way of thinking about things in the world, but the reveal of the mystery and the whole resolution of everything was just really not worth the read for me. And again, that was Dear Mr. M. And then the last ones, which I'm just gonna grab it from my shelf real quick, because I'm keeping them because it's a graphic novel, which are pricey, and it is considered a classic, is Mouse 1 and 2, which I talked about in my November wrap-up, which this is considered a biography, and this author's dad survived the Holocaust. His parents survived the Holocaust, and so it's him. He interviewed his dad before his dad passed away to find out information, and it goes back and forth between the story his dad's telling in real life, him getting the story out of his dad, and him and his dad clash a lot. They've gone through way different experiences, and so it's that, which was probably really interesting. And this is not a bad read. I'm so impressed by the art and the craft work. He draws them all as animals, hence mouse, and you know, you have really clever artwork, very, very impressive. I could never craft or even think to craft something like this. But it's on my list of most disappointing books because this has been on my shelves forever, and in the end, after finishing it, I just was like, okay. Like, I wanted to know more about other things and other people. I understand though that in terms of knowing more about his mom, that was not possible for various reasons, which you know find out if you read here. But I just, it didn't meet my expectations, which again I feel bad about because this is about a real story about a horrific event. This isn't some fictional tale I'm judging. This is like real, like this happened, and it was really sad and upsetting, and I did cry a couple times. But if we're just talking about in terms of my perception to the result, yeah, just I think I gave it 3 stars. But absolutely talented, this guy, and sad and upsetting and horrific this story is. Gosh, but yeah, but I had to add it to this list. So yeah, so that was my way shorter disappointing books. I did talk more about the books, so it's gonna seem like I had a longer, like a year of disappointing books, but that really is not the case. It was only a couple books, as you can see from my talking here, that I just was so bummed when I didn't love them. So, but yeah, the next video coming out will be my favorite books of 2018, and in that video I always make sure, because I want that video to be more positive and more exciting than this video, so I always make sure to include books that are all my 4 and 5 star reads essentially. And I looked at the list and it's quite long, so I am very excited. There's at least 20 something, and again, just my 4 and 5 star amazing reads. I probably read a couple 3 star, quite a few 3 stars that, you know, I liked, and they're on my shelves and I'm keeping them, but they're just not my favorites of 2018. So you can look forward to that. As always, let me know if you've read any of the books, what your thoughts are, if you read it too and also felt the same way or not. And I will be looking forward to any comments left. But yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.